What's going on, everybody? This is Daryl Yoki. I'm back for Okie Magazine. I'm here with the great Titus Underwood. How are you doing?
Doing all right. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh man, thank you for your time. You just told me you're out in Aspen, so it might be a little vacation time. So I don't want to keep you too long.
It's like more like vacation work. If there was like a word for that, I don't know. We need to make one up, but it's work and vacation at the same time. So
I hear you. Oh man. So Titus is the principal oboist for the Nashville Symphony. Is that correct?
Yep, that is correct.
Oh man, and how long have you been there now as the principal?
I've been in Nashville about 4 years now. 4 years, if I'm being correct. Yes, I'm going into my 5th season. Come to next season. So I had 3 seasons. Then the pandemic happened, so officially my playing 4th season.
I've been
it's my 5th season now, and I've been playing principal ever since I got there. So I also teach at University of Cincinnati Conservatory of Music. So I'm the associate professor there as well. So those are my 2 official titles.
Oh, nice. Oh, that's amazing. Now I was checking out your website. You've been playing in many different orchestras. Like I saw on there, like Miami. My alma mater is Duquesne in Pittsburgh, so I know the Pittsburgh Symphony very well.
Yeah. Played in Pittsburgh some, in Los Angeles, and Atlanta, and Utah. Played around in a lot of places, so I've definitely had my fair share of travel. And I also played with Gateways Music Festival, which is orchestras for people of African descent. Primarily in the orchestra, I played with Chineke out in London, and associated with Sphinx as well, which I got a Medal of Excellence with. So those are the places I've been mainly connected with and throughout my career. So yeah.
Oh, nice. Yeah, man, that's quite amazing. I actually majored in classical saxophone, but then I got out of school and realized that there wasn't much of a market for it. I had to
there's about 5 pieces for y'all.
Yeah, exactly. It's like I had to come to terms with the fact that no one was busting down my door to play concertos. Even if so, like I got to eat in between.
Yeah, you're just looking for those job posters. Like, where they at?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I saw, I think in a YouTube video, you actually wanted to start on a saxophone. Is that correct?
Yeah, so I wanted to start out on the saxophone at first, and because my uncle played saxophone, and I grew up around jazz and classical and gospel, a lot of gospel music, hip hop, like everything. So I grew up a pastor's kid, so I grew up in like Southern church, and all this like music was around us. So we was like basically Pentecostal church. So it's like we had clapping, dance, and everything. So we enjoyed all types of music. But I wanted to play saxophone at first, because my uncle played saxophone and everyone in my family played an instrument. So my dad took me to the music shop, and I looked at the saxophone. I was like, I don't know if I want to play that. I hadn't even tried it, but I just looked at it. I was like, I don't know if this is for me. And then my older sister played violin. She was like, you should play the oboe. I was like, what's that? And then she showed me the sound of it, and I was hooked ever since. So I've been playing oboe ever since my big sister just told me to play it. So I wish I had a story that was like, and I came upon this concert, and it's just like my sister like, play this, and I was like, okay. So the rest is history.
Oh, nice. At what age did you start playing oboe?
I started playing, I think, how old are we in 6th grade? Like 11 or 12, something like that?
Yeah, between those
two.
Yeah.
I'm like 11 years old. I started playing oboe. Yeah. I started right on.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Oh man, no, that's amazing. In the pandemic, when stuff shut down, I was like, I'm gonna get prepared for Broadway. So I started messing around with the Buddy's bassoon, and it was like the whole double reed thing is a whole new world, man.
Yeah, it's wild, man. It's wild.
Yeah. Well, I enjoyed it. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Oh. And so you started in middle school, and did you start taking lessons like shortly after you started, or like once you kind of decided, oh, I'm going to be a musician, then like you started taking the lessons?
So because all my other siblings took lessons, and my parents knew the value of lessons if I'm going to do it anyways, I started taking lessons pretty much almost like 2 months after I'd been playing or less. So they started setting me up lessons. I'm the youngest of 6 kids. So like all of them played instruments and all of them took lessons. So for me, they was like, okay, natural step of things is for Titus to take lessons. So my mother found an oboe teacher at the local community college. He played in the community orchestra, Principal Symphony, that was there. and I started studying with him. So I started taking lessons right away. So, I mean, I kind of had like, I was blessed to be in a family that knew what were the necessary steps. They didn't know everything, especially as it comes to like where I am today, like all the world that I entered it now. But they just did the best they could, like getting me lessons and trying to get me more exposed to things. So I started out I was blessed to have that early on in my journey playing the oboe. So.
Oh, wonderful, man. And then so you did that, you went in through high school, and then like in high school, were you doing competitions or stuff, or was that kind of later in the college thing? I wasn't quite sure.
So in high school, that's when I started doing competitions. So my mom took us out of public school when I entered into high school. So I was homeschooled, and I also dual enrolled in college. So I was going to college courses and then also playing in like the homeschool band association. Nice. And when I started in the homeschool band association, like the band teacher there, her name was Glenda Jones, and she helped me out a lot. Like I really got exposed to like competitions and other schools and summer festivals and stuff like that. So that was really part of my growth. Being a part of that association is what helped me like practice and really figure out where I needed to be with this. So that's when I started mainly doing competitions, was in high school, like you do an all-state band. And I started doing all county and stuff like that when I was in middle school, but really doing other stuff like, you know, all state and all South and all these other competitions they had, and the solo and ensemble, that stuff started in high school.
Oh, nice. I'm sure that helped, like, as far as getting prepared and for college. And college for you, I'm trying to remember. Like, I have it in my head, but I figured I'll talk to you. Was it Juilliard first, or was it Cleveland first?
So I went to Cleveland Institute of Music first. So there was a teacher named John Mack who I really wanted to study with. My teacher, John Mack, was the teacher of my teacher who was at Juilliard. So, like, it's kind of like a legacy thing. So I studied with John Mack. He passed away in my 2 years, me being there. He was older, and I was in his last years. And then from my undergrad, I went to Juilliard for my master's. I had like a long trajectory before I got to where I am now, like a lot of things in between. But I got the 3 degrees that I have are from Cleveland Institute of Music, the Juilliard School, and also the Coburn School out in LA.
Oh, that's wonderful. And it's funny, that name John Mack, I forgot. He actually had the retreat at Wild Acres in North Carolina, if I remember.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, because my teacher from undergrad, James Holick, he has a retreat out there for saxophones that happens the same week as the flutes. Yeah.
Oh, I see. Okay, yeah. Same place, Wild Acres. Yeah, I was supposed to be teaching there actually this summer. And then, like, it was funny, like, my wedding, I was like, my wedding's the same week as this. I can't do this. So, you know.
Well, I have to catch you on this.
Our wedding's on this week. I'm like, oh, my goodness.
Oh, so, yeah. Oh, man, that's too funny, man. So, I missed it. I went there in high school, but I went back there recently just to drop a buddy of mine off, and like I tell you, those bugs tore me up. I can do without those bugs.
Yeah, a lot of bugs out there. You in the South.
It is a nice one getaway.
Yeah.
Oh man. I'm gonna ask, like, how was your I guess maybe intro into the orchestra playing world? Like, were you taking auditions while you were in school, or did you get out of school and just like have something like happen right at about the bat as soon as you got out, or how did that happen for you?
I started taking auditions like seriously when I got into grad school. But I think until like one audition in undergrad, or maybe some local stuff. But then I started taking like major auditions in grad school. I think it took my first major audition like the summer of my like junior year or something like that. But I didn't know what I was doing at that point. And then when I got into grad school, you know, Juilliard, my teachers, Pedro Diaz and Danny Lang DeRoss, they were really big on like getting you prepared for like the audition room. And I felt like I was always behind the 8 ball all the time, because like in Pensacola, I didn't know about interlocking, or I didn't know about like, you know, Idlewild or any of these places, right? Walnut Hill, like all these like camps or like boarding schools that kids go to that I've met in undergrad. So a lot of this exposed to like orchestra excerpts and stuff like that didn't come out till later. So then when I got into grad school, that's when I started taking auditions. And, you know, and then when I was at Coburn, that's when I really started like knocking out auditions. I was studying with the teacher there, Alan Vogel. I was also really also taking a lot of studies with Ann Gabriel, who's second in the LA field, who helped me out tremendously. So I started taking auditions. I started getting close in a lot of jobs. So this audition thing was happening. I mean, I've been auditioning for 10 years before I got landed into Nashville Symphony. There's a lot of stuff that happened in between. But I was making a bunch of finals and stuff and being the last person there and like knocking on the door, and I was hitting a lot of glass ceilings. But it took like a good long, I mean, there were other jobs that was very close in, but I didn't really start getting serious until like my second year of grad school, when I really felt like I knew what I was doing. And that kind of more extended when I started working, especially on audition repertoire with Ann Gabriel at Cobra. And that really started to help me get my footing very clearly about what this audition thing is.
Oh man, that's amazing. Yeah, because I kind of like hope maybe if any students watching this kind of pay attention to the part where you say it took 10 years till you got the Nashville thing. Because I see some people maybe think the success just comes right away, but I have friends that are still auditioning that I went to school with, and I graduated. Was it 2000? 2003, 2004 from Duquesne, and then grad school was 2006 for me. So yeah, I think it's one of those things you have to be kind of tenacious with it if you really want to do it.
Yep, for sure. I mean, it's definitely a hyper-focused thing to do. Like, because you're really, like, when you get into conservatory, you're in that competitive atmosphere, it's like you're in 1%. Then in orchestra, you're in the 1% of the 1%. Because, like, people are in these jobs for 30, 40 years sometimes. Right. Like a 10-year member of an orchestra, you're there as long as you want to be there. So imagine the rate of attrition is so low. So when a job opens up, you have to be really on your stuff to be a competitor, to secure a job, get through there, get your tenure, and secure your career. So especially for those that, I mean, most of these jobs are really hard to get. So, I mean, my hat goes off to people who really, really know the grind of the audition circuit, because it is it's a grind.
Yeah. Yeah, it seems kind of like the Olympics that can just show up at any moment,
Yes, exactly. That's a good way to put it. It's an Olympics that can show up at any moment. So I really think of instrumentalists as small muscle athletes, like, I mean, you have to we talk about being in shape and stuff like that. And we do exercise and we warm up. And some people even cool down, brass players. So like, we're really, really in the psychological components of it. The being able to sit there and do like command your best part of your fundamentals on command while being like the 60th candidate and playing everything down, but in a musical and convincing way. Like that's a very specific skill set, So right. it's you have to learn to be a part of your tools towards being a professional in the orchestra.
Yeah, it's like I think that's like I said, I think it's one of those things you really have to love it, and just kind of almost have to. I guess if I was in that world, I would kind of think like I had to kind of almost imagine that I just have to keep doing it just because I love it, and then when the audition comes up, I'm kind of prepared for it already because I've been doing it,
Yeah.
It's just an amazing thing. But actually, I want to kind of jump gears a little bit here, or maybe switch gears is a better term. It's still related to the orchestra world, but as you know very well, and I myself from kind of being one of the few Black students in a university, let alone a classical program, like how was maybe the genesis of your experiences with school and then in the orchestra world once you got into it, as far as just maybe being the only guy or maybe one of the few in there?
Yeah. I mean, when I got to undergrad, I was the only Black undergrad when I showed up. Then more Black people came in later. I have a few friends who came in later that I still keep in contact with. Grad school, I was the only Black grad student at that time. And then a year later, 2 other Black students came in. And I mean, I was so used to being the only one in these spaces. I mean, that didn't mean that these spaces didn't feel foreign to me, because they did. Like, I grew up around Black people primarily. Like, I grew up in Black church. I grew up going to like learning like hardcore Black history, watching the Roots series and watching Eyes on the Prize growing up. Like my family really taught me like my culture growing up, big family reunions, like that type of like culture. So when I went into conservatory, I mean, I love playing the music, you know what I'm saying? So the music, I really love like creating the music with other people. Then later on, I started learning more about Black composers and stuff like that. And like, we have been in this space for a really, really long time. As far as the conservatory is concerned, it's an interesting experience because you can feel both ostracized. And then when you start to meet people, you start to meet friends, you connect with people, but you still like that Black friend. But with my teachers was always just taught me oboe. You know, it's just like, that's what I was there for. That's what I paid for school to go to. That's what, so they just taught me my lessons. So when I've never had a bad teacher experience. I know some people have. I've never had a bad teacher experience, and my teachers are still my mentors to this day. You know, so that component, as far as like what that is concerned, they always helped me with my oboe career or my oboe playing, because I knew that's what I was there for. If I need to talk about other issues, I have my friends for that, I have my family for that. So I go talk to them for that, because I'm like, I'm here to get this specific skill set from you to learn how to function this thing at a higher level. So and then when I started getting into the orchestral world, that's when I started to find out more of the barriers that were there, because the auditions weren't screened. You know, there are a lot of biases that are there. I mean, there are plenty of biases. I mean, it's obviously been proven that there's racial bias that happen within the orchestral field. I mean, the statistics prove that I think it's 1.8 Black people in the orchestra field now. Maybe it's slightly more at this point. I would barely think it's pushing 2%. I mean, there are no Black music directors over any major symphony orchestras at all. I mean, the other thing that happens, there isn't any Black repertoire. We call ourselves an American orchestra. How can you be an American orchestra when Black people are the biggest musical contributors in America as far as like culture music is concerned in this land? So like, what does an American orchestra really look like, and what does it sound like, and who's in that orchestra who's being culturally represented, but also being culturally affirmed in that space? If we're just playing European music and then European aesthetics, we're a European model within American soil. So we must call ourselves something else besides an American orchestra, because that doesn't call yourself an American orchestra. That has to come with culture as well. So when I think about the orchestral field, you know, there are many biases. There's age bias, there's gender bias, there's school bias, all these things that happen. But we're talking specifically about race. I mean, yes, I have plenty of stories that I experienced things with people saying things to me, or people thinking that I'm different. Now, I understand when someone's genuinely curious about my existence. Like, I'm a 6'2" Black guy playing oboe. I'm not the everyday oboe player you will see. So some people are just genuinely curious. And then there's some people who are like curious, you know. So I mean, I've been Black my whole life, so I understand like the difference between the two. When someone's probing in a positive way, and someone's probing in a negative way, so I can get the difference. But a lot of times, I mean, right now we're in such a cultural change within the orchestral landscape that, you know, we're starting to figure out what are the best ways to ensure that there are Black players within orchestras. I mean, I think that orchestras should, in this field, to explore all the options to ensure that you really, really up your demographics that are there, because it's about the value of the players, about what they bring there, and it also makes your institutions more valid. Like, there is no other institution that is so like stagnant in a way. That doesn't mean that the music isn't great. That doesn't mean that I don't enjoy playing Brahms. I enjoy playing Beethoven. I enjoy playing all this stuff. But one way that I like to kind of let people know, I like to take them on a timeline of how this works. So we just played Beethoven's Ninth, you know, last week at Aspen Music Festival. Beautiful piece, one of the greatest symphonies ever written. Everyone knows Beethoven 9 and the joys in it. I mean, it's an amazing piece. But what's really fun is happening in America when Beethoven's Ninth is being premiered. I think about 6 years later after that, Jim Crow is also a very popular song in America. Yeah, like that's simultaneously happening. Beethoven's Ninth, Jim Crow, then that turns into 100 years of Jim Crow laws. That shows how closely connected this. And people say, why does history matter? Then Beethoven doesn't matter. History don't matter. Don't play Beethoven. Don't play Brahms. Don't play Bach if history doesn't matter. So if I'm talking about Beethoven, you're giving me this curriculum about a timeline. And you're talking about American orchestra specifically. We need to be talking about what's happening culturally in America, specifically to Black people that have been ostracizing them and making them less American. So this is the thing that I like to bring up, and how to anchor people in history. Like 1940s, I think the fanfare for the Common Man written by Aaron Copland. You know, that Common Man who? Black people weren't even considered as the Common Man then. This is Jim Crow laws. We still had colored fountains. You know, these white terrorist group, people burning down things, Tulsa, Oklahoma, Red Summer, you name it. You know, so I think once we really have a true grasp on what this really is, then we can figure out, then we'll know where to go from there. And it's just, do people have the strength and the boldness to actually make the changes that need to happen? If that's not happening within the orchestral field, then, you know, Black artists get together, build your own thing, fund that, make those things, make it cool, bring bring the attention over there, bring the demand over there. Because I do think there'll be new structures that will arise in the next 10, 15 years. For sure, that'd be just as sustainable as symphony orchestras.
Most definitely. I mean, because I see some of the work that Sphinx and Shineki, am I saying that right?
Shineki, yeah.
Shineki, yeah. I see the stuff that they're doing. I think it's great. But it's funny to hear you say that, you know, even with those organizations around, how little percentage it may have increased, you know, in the orchestral world, you know.
Yeah, so. Sphinx is doing a lot of great stuff. Gateway is doing a lot of great stuff. Trinity is doing a lot of great stuff, and really hitting the door. And they've built their own. Like, my hat goes off to Aaron Dorkin and Alpha building that thing, and Gateways, how that's been built. And I think it's just the thing how I think about orchestras, and even when I say build your own, you know, a lot of these 501c3 places are tax exempt, so therefore the orchestra belongs to the city. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? So people who donate and stuff, it belongs to the city. So any of those spots are for anyone. Right. So like, it isn't like that's what people say it's a predominantly white institution. It's not a white institution. It's an institution that's predominantly white. This means that the culture that's there is going to be predominantly. And the thing about it is, it's not even predominantly white American culture. It's predominantly like European culture, which is even more fascinating thing if you really think about it, right? So like, it's my music. Like, are you really related to Bach? Like, you've been white American for 3 generations now. Right. Like, don't know anyone in Europe. Don't go there for any family reunion. Don't know any relatives there. But you claiming this is your. So this whole thing, so we say it's American, then you got to start talking about William Grant Steele. Then you got to talk about Margaret Buns. Then you got to talk about Florence Price. Then you got to talk about Nathaniel Dad, like Black American people who were William Dawson, who would make writing some of the most prolific works in American repertoire. Even Dvorak said he will not take any American school of composition seriously if they do not use Negro tunes. Because that is the culture of this land. So if you think about it, Black people were brought here to this country. We're here 200-something years before Dvorak got here. I mean, there was culture being built generation after generation after generation. They weren't just people who were just enslaved. There were people with culture and language and customs. So this started to get put within a structure called the symphony orchestra or symphonic music or songs. So if you think about the culture here, if you think about whites migrating here, they're actually bringing in European culture to be preserved here. If you think about American culture, you're talking about 200-something years of people been in soil making music here. So like, I have to really change people's paradigm of what American music is. Even Gershwin. Gershwin, where does those sounds come from? What people? Right, like, exactly. Gershwin was always been cited for being in Harlem, hanging out all the time. What do you think you got? It has to be connected to people. Gershwin isn't just some one-off who created his own sound. Like, sounds come from cultures. So like, this is the thing that I'm talking about, like really making the orchestra world different. And that's the thing I'm most excited about, like building things and people who are allies and want to rock with it. And people kind of tired of the same thing too. So let's make it exciting. Let's do something new.
Yeah, I hear you. Yeah, that's funny. I have a conversation like that with some of my friends. It's just like, you know, I love Stravinsky. I love all these classical composers, but I mean, like, yeah, you know, I'm sitting here thinking the people who donate to these symphonies, I mean, they're at the tail end of it. And after that, where's the funding going to come from? I mean, you got to try to capture the modern audience somehow, you know, otherwise, you know, because I mean, I think Pittsburgh, if I remember correctly, was having some financial trouble. St. Louis, maybe went bankrupt a couple years ago. I can't remember. Yeah,
I mean, orchestras have struggled financially for many, many years. Orchestras have gone out of business, back in business. I do think that there are other models that can make the orchestra more sustainable. I think there are ways that we can move the culture forward, but you got to embrace it all, man. Yeah, and exactly. I'm not stop playing Bach. I love Stravinsky. I love all these composers. They have a special place in my heart. I dig them, but like at the same time, like if you really, really want to pull more demographics, you need to culturally affirm more people. Right. You can't. If somebody finds something boring, then they think it's boring. Like I'm not gonna tell someone that something's not boring. If someone fell asleep during the symphony, I'd be like, you know what? If that's boring to you, cool. Like I'm not gonna like make somebody feel bad about what they find is boring. Right. Yeah. Exactly. Do I think that like this culture sometimes people say people's attention span is so short. Yeah, in some ways, it's not that their attention span is short. It's that they're paying attention to different things.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. They said the same thing about when newspapers were in the subways and people like took newspapers and started burning them.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, this, and now the newspaper, people like, you read a newspaper, that's awesome. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's
right.
It's interesting how these things shift because we don't understand it. But I think we should really, and that's why I started creating like more film stuff and I finished the short film and all this stuff. That's why I started creating stuff like that because one, I want to start using my artistic tools to meet a new medium called the internet, which is another stage.
Yeah, so, exactly. Yeah. Actually, could you maybe tell us a little bit about the video? It's called The Tale of Two Tales, correct?
The Tale of Two Tales, yes, sir. So, A Tale of Two Tales is a short film. My first, I've created other things like this thing called We Are Nashville that I actually won an Emmy for with other people, and then Lift Every Voice is my second video project. This went like 5 over a million some views in the first week, and then The Tale of Two Tales is a short film, and I collaborated with TT Lyle. She's an amazing photographer and videographer, and I came up with the concept about 1.5 years ago. And I knew I wanted to direct things, and I started getting more into directing and creating like these concepts. And then I came up with the clothes, and then the words, and then about 8 months after this had been kind of brewing, I was looking for someone, a videographer, to film it. Mm-hmm. So then I reached out to TT. I liked her aesthetic. I liked what she did with the camera. And I was just like, then we started talking and we kind of it took us about 2 months to kind of get to the same type of idea of what we wanted. Mm-hmm. And then, we just knocked it out the park. So I've been really happy about that. But it's primarily about, my dichotomous or perceived dichotomous existence within classical music. Like both. I use this quote I based off of double consciousness through W.E.B. Du Bois. Mm-hmm. And I say one of the quotes and I say, disguise has always been integral to our survival, but our both sides meet. And the whole thing is kind of based off of a public and private self. Like my public self, I wear my tails, I play classical music, I play like normal stuff, but the whole thing is classical music. Mm-hmm. And I play 2 Black composers. At the end, I say play Black music. The reason I say play Black music because that's me culturally affirming my culture in this space. It's a call to action in a way, and then there's the layers of the identity. Like, because I participate in this art form, I am both. I do know how to play Bach, Brahms, all this stuff in Mozart. And I also know how to play this Fredo. I also know how to play this James Lee III. I can do it all. And the composers are James Lee III and Fred Onovo-Sweke. People check them out. They're amazing. Also check out TT. I think that is the biggest thing for me is it's like I wanted to paint something that showed a different destination as far as like professional music is concerned. Because if you think about any professional space, it has a uniform that signifies that you made it. Like when a person goes to a draft, they get their jersey. When a doctor becomes a doctor, my wife's a doctor, she gets the long white coat. You're a fireman, you get the fireman uniform. You're a classical musician, you wear your tails. And I said, these are also my tails. These other tails here. The designer Akiri Jones, he's amazing. He designed on Black Panther, also designed on Coming to America 2. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to signify something that not just playing the Black music, but also showing a new aesthetic of how it can be presented. Something new, something fresh. Like if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this in a way that also culturally affirms people in this space. I'm going to make it look cool. I'm going to make it look like swag in it. Everything that's a part of it. And those were the things, and it's more layers to the piece than that. But that's what I really want to evoke in this piece. And if people haven't checked it out, it's at TitusUnderwood.com/TOTT. That's TitusUnderwood.com/TOTT. It's called A Tale of Two Tales. And that's like, I'm very proud of that work and it's still growing. I was able to show it at Interlock and I showed it at Carnegie for one of their festivals. And it just keeps growing. It's going to keep growing over the year because I'm going to keep pushing it because I'm very, very happy about how it turned out.
Yeah, it was amazing, man. I had to say, I'm sorry, I couldn't quite catch the designer's name, but I saw that jacket and I was like, that's really intricate artwork on there. I was like, yeah. When it popped down, I was like, oh, it's kind of like that Wakanda scene where they go through the thing. For me, I was like, oh no.
yeah. Akiri Jones is his name. Akiri Jones is the.
Akiri Jones, okay.
Yeah, Akiri Jones, yeah.
No, it's amazing. But yeah, I totally agree about creating this space if the doors aren't opening up or not opening up fast enough. I was kind of curious if you personally, or if maybe in discussions with people, have you ever felt pushback for even daring to bring this up, you know, because like, you know, in my experience, but even outside of classical, just talking about, you know, history, like saying, yeah, I want to discover my roots. It's like, well, why do you need to do that? It's like, well, same reason you would belong to, you know.
Exactly.
You know, I just find, I was wondering, like, you know, if you, when you bring up like playing more Black, you know, composers, have you received the pushback, so to speak, or ever felt it from anybody?
I mean, I've felt pushback in the past. More so, people are championing more so now. I mean, one of the things that I like to put people, when people even try to push back, there's always going to be an oppositional force, right? Mm-hmm. That's just normal. That's just the existence. That's been here since we've known it. But like, the thing I press people to do, one, play it well, number one, and then two, know your stuff. Like, if someone wants to ask what does play Black music mean, I can explain to them exactly what play Black music means. The thing of it is like, it's interesting when they do like these Martin Luther King concerts and stuff, right? Mm-hmm. And they play a piece that's not even, they play like William Grant Still's first Afro-American symphony. That's not even during the time when King was like during the civil rights movement. Like, what are people talking like? It's funny, like when I see people, I mean, the civil rights movement started to boil and come to fruition at that point, but that's not during the peak of the time. You need to put something like Margaret Bonds. That's more during that time. That shows how like they just put a Black composer on there, right? And then the other thing I think about is like there's value to this music, and what do American orchestras want to be? Like, are you going to be copycats of European music your whole time? Or are you going to have some sort of cultural export that you're able to share with the world? Like, which one is it? And when I think of like pushback, like I don't even pay attention to that most of the time, to be honest. I don't. Is it annoying when someone's nagging you? Yeah, I've had a few nags that's trying to be on my heels, but I don't care. The other thing is I think the most important thing of it is that one, the music is amazing, and then two, like when someone tries to talk about that, I'm very historically anchored. Like I know the history of this stuff. Like there's no major symphony orchestra, legacy orchestra that's been founded outside of Jim Crow. Gotcha. Like name one. So when you wrote your laws, when you wrote your CBA, your collective bargaining agreement, when your unions were formed, Black people were not involved in the forming of that. So how can I not challenge that? Right, and you don't think that's going to reflect today? And then the other thing people say, well, you know, people are just building things and people came here with a bag and, you know, came from their country to this country. So if there was an American dream to be pursued, there had to be capital here to be able to get that someone else had to do the labor to provide the capital for you to build your orchestra. So where did the capital come from? Who was building the thing for your American dream to be fulfilled, for you to leave your homeland and come somewhere else to pursue a dream? Because a lot of people don't want to leave home. I know I was at home, I don't want to leave somewhere because I have to. So like you want your own place to be thriving. So like I'm saying, let's really, really talk about the history because none of this stuff is talked about in conservatory.
Exactly.
Zero.
Yep. I agree.
Zero. If I'm learning about the 1950s and 40s and 30s and the 1800s and 1700s, not one time did you talk about the transatlantic slave trade and how that affected classical music. How Handel, who we play his Messiah every single December, was a big investor in the slave trade. So like, I'm not saying, hey, let's cancel Handel. I'm just saying, let's just put that out there and you decide what you want to do with that information.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, these are the things that I want to challenge people on. Like, how can my people we were just invisible? Like, we didn't exist? Right. So how are we here? So, you know what I'm saying? So I want to take people on a journey and challenge them. That's for everybody. That's even for my Black colleagues. Like, know your stuff. Like, it's even more important that you know your stuff. Because, like, it's one thing to scream into a void. And I tell this all the time. Know your stuff and strategize. Build. Get colleagues together and build things. Because, like, outrage, you are justified with being angry. I get just as angry as someone else. Like, when George Floyd happened, all that stuff, I was just angry as someone else. But outrage is a very expensive emotion. As soon as you, like, then you like this, how you going to plan? Right. And they try to keep you, you know, wired up the whole time. You got to be planning. You got to be building. You got to be curating because you got to keep building something for the future. And that's what a lot of times I want to have a proactive approach. Not saying that you don't have space to be angry or sad or anything like that, but a proactive approach to this thing.
Yes, most definitely. I was gonna say that maybe touch on the thing because we kind of been talking about a little bit of the industry, but I think a lot of it does start in the education thing. And I know that they should probably incorporate these things into the curriculum somehow. Do you see that happening in the next couple of years, or you see it kind of happening already? I kind of been out of the university loop myself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I see it. I taught a class through Richmond Symphony. I do think there's something called Black Music Discovery. Shout out to Richmond Symphony. I think there's a lot of things that are starting to happen. There are a lot of people in this space that are starting to build and show things, like I said, through gateways, Castle of Our Skins, where Ash Gordon, she's an amazing educator and all this stuff. And my friend Jen Arnold, who's going into HBCUs and building things. Like the movement is starting, and it's not going anywhere. I think it's only going to build. And I think if the conservatories move slowly, it's going to go somewhere else, whether it's in the HBCUs or people building their own things. It's going to keep moving. Like it's not going to stop. So in the conservatories, I can't predict. I don't have a crystal ball of if the conservatory is going to move things forward. I don't know. But are there people who will? Are there some institutions that start to move forward? Yeah. But I'm not going to wait on it. Right. I'm just going to building. Like I said, when I said I wanted to do a short film, I just did it. When Military Voice was to be created, I just did it. Yeah. I just go out and just do things and like be an example and be about it. So like that's what I press people to do. Like if someone's not budging to do something, you're wasting a lot of your energy. Yeah. You're wasting a lot of your energy. So like I said, people should be invested in places like Gateways, Chineke, Sphinx. Like the conversation's already happened. The building is happening. And it's just going to continue to grow from here. And the beautiful thing about the internet is that you can go straight to your audience. Yep. Straight to them. And you just build out of that. So I think people should be more inventive. I'm not saying institutions don't have a great way of preserving things. Institutions do play a role in preserving things. Somebody can go to a library as an institution. You go to a conservatory and learn it. There's knowledge and tradition passed down, but there needs to be a turnover and things need to grow. So in the next 2 years, maybe. I'm not 100% sure, but we'll see what happens. But I will be one of those people definitely pushing the pedal to the metal and ensure that things are shifting.
Yeah, most definitely. No, and I'm sure it will. Do you have any other projects? I know you just released the video. Do you have anything coming down the pipe that we can keep an eye out for?
Yes. So A Tale of Two Tales is my most recent. The thing that I'm working on now, let's just say it's going to be geared towards a children's crowd, more of a children's thing. And because I do think the future are the children, like the most cliche thing everyone says. Yeah. But I think that's the thing that I'm working on now. But A Tale of Two Tales is the project I'm pushing at the moment. I'm going to continue to push it over the course of a year and, lecture about it and talk about it and show people the film. So that, those are the things I have coming down the pipeline. The other thing pipeline as far as career is concerned is starting at University of Cincinnati, teaching some amazing oboe students, and I'm really happy part of that institution. And those are the things I'm most excited about. Getting excited once things kind of work out with Nashville Symphony, starting the season back up. Like there's some good things coming out. I'll also be in Chineke during in about a month as well. So, but as far as individual projects, the children's project is that's my next thing that I'm super excited about. It's going to take some time. But in the meantime, I'm going to keep pushing The Tale of Two Tales while that other one is still in the oven being worked.
I hear you. Like, it never, the oven never stops, right?
It never stops. I'm like, I'm going to just keep moving. I'm not going to stop. That isn't how I function.
Yeah, it's funny. It's like, it's the same thing for me. It's, I always have something. It's just always a matter of the time and the money. That's the only thing that keeps the train from going full steam ahead all the time.
Yep, absolutely.
Oh, man. Well, man, thank you again. Again, this is Mr. Titus Underwood joining us at Oki for this wonderful interview, and hopefully we'll get a chance to wrap some more. Yeah. I think we'll have to do something again, so this was very fun.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me, and I look forward to seeing it, and thank you so much for having me be a part of it.
Oh, thank you. And then I'll see you next time then.
Absolutely. Talk soon.
Okay.
All right. Bye-bye.